here to stop start.
Great.
Okay.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam, and I'm a lecturer at Newcastle University. I apologise in advance. The sun has just come round at a perfect angle to blind me as I speak. So I do apologise for that in advance. Today, I mainly want to support a discussion on the etiquette of criticising people's work. Now, for this to work, I do need, it does depend on audience participation. So please be prepared, just like you did in the last session, to get involved and share your thoughts in this very much a safe space. Now, being able to critique other people's research is really important for scientific progress. I think we can all agree on that. And we've done a lot of that, a lot of critiquing other people's work over the last 2 days. And it makes me wonder, it does make me think, and I've thought this for a while now, and I think I've brought it up in a fair few STALK outreach meetings, and whether there are better and worse ways to go about doing that, to go about criticising other people's work. I think we can all agree that open science is important and open science practices have many benefits. As I say, I'm sure we can all agree that on that call. But I'm sure we are also very aware that there are also many barriers to engaging in open science, some of which we've discussed already. We saw yesterday that Gabriel from Sao Paulo University, working with EMA, is exploring the barriers to open science via a questionnaire-based registered report. So we'll provide some really important empirical data on that. But anecdotally, in my experience of speaking with colleagues, both in my own institution and outside of that institution, both nationally and internationally, this seems to be one of the leading barriers to open science in those who currently don't engage in it. Being publicly criticised or shamed, quote unquote, and that, again, anecdotally, that seems to be particularly related to statistical analysis. So if they share their data and code, of course, as we've just seen from Chris's talk, there are many other open science practices that you can engage in. But it seems to be particularly related to sharing data and code that people are very averse to, and it's a big barrier of engaging in open science. Seems to be this conception that they may be openly criticised by other people who are more engaged in open science. So I think it's really important that we at least try to address this barrier and discuss best practices for critiquing other people's work. And this may or may not lead to more people engaging in open science, which again, I think it was Chris who highlighted is a central tenet of STALK's mission. So this is my background. I'm a lecturer in exercise science. I'm a quantitative researcher and I specialise in physical activity in cancer prevention and survivorship. And here's a disclaimer. Talking about etiquettes of critiquing people's work is not my specialist area. I don't have a magic answer, and I'm not going to talk about things like psychological theories that underlie this behaviour. Today, I mainly want to just initiate and facilitate a discussion by getting like-minded people in a virtual room and sharing our thoughts. So this is mainly how I see this session going. I think, Chris, you were maybe a little bit more active than what this portrays, but this is how I see this session going, with me sitting back in my computer and listening to you guys share your thoughts. And coincidentally, this is actually the same way I like to teach my students as well. So this is the aim, to initiate, perhaps raise awareness and initiate a conversation about the etiquettes of raising queries or criticising other people's research. And I'm mostly going to focus on social media, because I think that provides an avenue for public, again, quote unquote, shaming. So this is the structure. We're going to look at some example tweets. We're going to then, for each tweet, vote whether you think they are appropriate or not. And then we're going to have an open discussion of the etiquette of critiquing other people's work. It's here I would like you guys to, in a very orderly fashion, unmute yourselves and please share your thoughts. Hopefully the example tweets will stimulate that discussion. So can I ask you guys to type in your, I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so to type in your browser now. For those who are lucky enough, type it in your second screen. For those who are slightly less lucky but still pretty fortunate, type it in your smartphone. That's what I'm going to do. And those who don't have access to a second screen or a smartphone, I'm sure you can open a new tab on one screen. It will ask you to add a screen name, but you can just skip this. It's in big letters, you can just press skip. I'll give you guys another 10 seconds or so. The link is available in other slides too. So this is just poll everywhere. EMA's my barometer. When I see that phone go down, I'm going to think, okay, then people have typed it in.
But I am very slow.
Okay.
I don't think I should be a barometer for that.
In that case, I'll move on. It does have the link on the other slides as well. So there's going to be 8 example tweets. Guys, I want you to vote whether you think these tweets are appropriate. You'll be able to see on your screen with the poll everywhere the options. There's 4 options. Going from it's fine, but there is a better way to critique this research. It's not appropriate, and it depends. So this first one is a tweet by me saying this paper contains errors in the analysis leading to false conclusions. Here is our letter to the editor. Marie Apple then replies, have you reached out to the authors? I then reply, no. Just to reiterate, guys, there isn't a right or wrong answer to these at all. There probably isn't a right or wrong answer, full stop. And none of these are trick questions. I don't know the answers to them either. In fact, as I'm speaking, I forgot to vote. So I'm going to vote this as well.
Isn't the letter to the editor technically reaching out to the authors?
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. But there's other avenues of doing that, isn't there, James?
Yeah.
There's
other avenues.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
it is technically, but why not just go straight? Because maybe they'll give them the chance to correct it themselves.
Oh, we're jumping ahead, guys. We've got 8 slides to go through. Keep these important thoughts. These are the sorts of discussions though that I'm interested in, because yes, it is reaching out to the authors, but is there a better way? There are plenty of avenues to get to speak to authors. Great, right. The conclusions to this paper are completely misleading and do more harm than good to our field. And there's a screenshot of the paper there. I like these fake tweet generators as well, because I've given myself a blue tick. And that might be important to the context. Someone having a blue tick suggests they may have a higher profile and some seniority, and that might be important to the context, or may not be. Give you another 10 seconds.
Can I clarify? So there was no response, like, was this a thread or this was your only tweet?
No, sorry, this is, I should have clarified, this is a completely separate tweet. Although it's me tweeting each time, I don't think it's fair to give examples of real tweets from real people about real papers when this is a presentation about raising concerns and the etiquette of raising concerns. So this is my way to anonymize the tweets. They are based on real examples, but they are anonymized by they're me tweeting and they're talking about my papers. Cool, we're going to move on. This is a direct tweet to someone. Hey, Jenny Pear, can you please explain why the primary outcome is different in your paper to the primary outcome that you initially pre-registered? Of course, we spoke a little bit about outcome switching already over the past couple of days. Give you another 10 seconds or so, guys.
This is so interesting. I love the live poll format, Sam. I'm totally stealing this.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? The Poll Everywhere is one. I think there's a few others that probably people use in the teaching as well. OnBay, I think, gets used quite often. Cool, we'll move on. Halfway. Hey, Wendy Plum, can you please tell us why you switched the primary outcome in your paper from the one that you originally pre-registered? Someone's very cutthroat. There's been, it's fine, gone up very, even before I finished. I think James is laughing and there's a culprit there before I finished speaking.
There's a scale effect here.
That's how I identified your data, James, following on from our conversation. Again, this is very, similar to last week. Some subtle differences. I'll give you another 5 seconds before I move on. Great. Next one, and this was I'm making this slightly less anonymous because this was quite a viral example, or based on anyway. So it's 2022, and sports science PhD students are still publishing papers like this, lol. And you'll see what I've highlighted here are magnitude-based inferences, qualitative descriptors based on magnitude-based inferences. For the 5 seconds.
What's the dog's vote?
The dog's vote that he wants to go out and see what that noise was, I think. Yeah. Cool, we'll move on. Another tweet from me. The authors of this meta-analysis are clearly geniuses. How on earth they use the means and SDs from Anderson et al. To calculate a mean difference of 2.72 kilos, I have no idea. I'm offering my car and house to anyone who can replicate this wizardry.
I think anyone can easily tell who that is based on.
Yeah.
A certain iconoclast. Let's say some of the examples are based on some from our field and outside our field. Another 5 seconds. Seems like most of these are it's fine or it's fine, but there's a better way. Penultimate tweet. The authors of this paper, with the paper cited, made their research data publicly accessible. I've rerun their analysis, and unfortunately, their findings are completely wrong. Another example of sports science researchers who can't do statistics. A thread. Another 5 to 10 seconds. Interesting. It's not appropriate. Seems to be highest here. Cool, we'll move on. Last one. It's based on a paper that's asked a question in its title, and I tweet, no, it can't. Clearly, what the authors have done here is measure a SHIT load of variables, shove them in a regression model, and only kept the significant variables. This is not good science. Last one, guys. Another 5 seconds or so. Cool. That seems to essentially have stopped.
So those are 8 example tweets, and now I'm going to ask for your input and your thoughts, and hopefully that stimulated some discussion about the etiquettes of raising concerns, and here I'm using examples on social media. So what do you think? And some things to stimulate that discussion. Are these tweets appropriate? Why or why not? Does context matter? Is there a best practice workflow to criticize work? And are there any real world examples you can give for either being publicly criticized yourself or raising concerns yourself? I think some of the discussion started from the first one, which was about a letter to the editor. I'm going to stop sharing here so we can see everyone's faces. And I wonder if anyone had thoughts about letters to the editor. So I actually was on the receiving end of one recently, which will be published soon, which I responded to and put on Twitter. So I had some lived experience of that, which got me thinking a little bit more about that as well, whether that is the best way. If you want to chat, guys, great. If you can put your hands up, John, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Oh yeah, just on the letter to the editors thing. So some of you guys will probably know that I wrote a letter about a very senior professor in our field when I was a PhD student, and got quite a lot of pushback. I got 2 sides of the coin. I got a lot of pushback from one group of people and a lot of encouragement from another group of people.
Sorry, John, you wrote the letter to the editor, or someone wrote what you wrote the letter?
No, I wrote a letter.
Yeah.
To a former Team GB principal and professor of sport and exercise psychology here in the UK, basically criticising their work. In hindsight, it's the only one I've ever written, and in hindsight, I probably wouldn't bother again, just because the way that letters are structured, you write your letter, and the author writes their paper, you write your letter, then they write their response, and that's the end of the story as far as most journals are concerned. You can't really get to the nitty-gritty of the problems in the way that that's formatted. And actually, this is one of the reasons why preprint repositories are so good. So Sport Archive was in early days when basically this was happening. So I was able to write a response to the response as a preprint. And I got criticism about that, because there was this argument of, well, we have these systems to stop this from being tit for tat forever. But actually, the point of this is to try to get to the core of the problem and not just whitewash over the issues, right? And that was always my approach to it, but it wasn't necessarily the approach I saw back. So I think there are systematic problems to letter writing that we could look at, and I think I agree, James, but that's a different matter entirely. But I think there are systematic problems with this issue more broadly, and I don't think we have a very good way of approaching criticism in our area really at all. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, no, I completely. Thanks for the anecdote, John. I completely agree, which was the motivation for this talk, really, because I think it's seen as letters to the editors are considered usually the go-to approach, and I'm not saying they're not a good strategy for raising concerns about people's work, but I think that, as you said, there's lots of limitations to them as well. Zach, sorry, you have your hand up. Yes, please.
Sure. So, I think I echo, I want to say it was Keith's point in the chat, that probably, and I apologize if I'm wrong about that, that there are probably multiple approaches, and maybe diversity of approaches is ultimately best for our field. Personally, I would hope that people would reach out to me first, privately, and then offer me the chance to make a correction before just putting me on blast. And then if I don't, then put me on blast. If I don't respond, or if I'm not cooperative or whatever. Likewise, I hope that I would reach out to an author first, give them the opportunity to make improvements before then going public independently of them. Now, sometimes there are cases where that the author doesn't care, and maybe based on some prior interactions, and you might do that, but you know, I've seen a variety of ways. I think they can be effective and sometimes not effective. But again, ultimately, I think the variety of approaches isn't so bad as long as the person making the criticism is willing to accept the responsibility that they themselves may be wrong and that they themselves are having a real impact on people. So I think they need to make those decisions very, very carefully and not just reflexively tweet.
I agree. And I think that's where I am, you know, Zach. I think these, you know, sometimes these tweets, although I think we should be able to, you know, criticize people's work, there's sometimes a lack of thought about the recipient at the end of that. So, you know, sometimes, and I'm not saying you should never tweet, you know, critically, publicly criticize people's work, but, you know, sometimes maybe there's more of a thought process, you know, and thinking about the recipient of that. You know, thanks for that, Zach. Rosie, I know you've had your hand up for a little while.
Yeah, and I generally agree with what's being said here, but I do think context is really important because sport and exercise science covers clinical exercise science. And for me, vulnerable clinical populations are more important than researcher feelings. So where the research is on the academic record, the response should also be on the academic record if it has potential to cause harm to clinical populations. And that's kind of one of the areas I'm sitting in at the moment. And so while I agree that, you know, contacting the researchers first is preferable, my priority will be clinical populations first above researcher feelings. And so that's why responses for me will often come first on PubPeer.
Yeah, I think that's a really, you know, really important point. I think it also links back, I agree with you as well. I think it links back somewhat to what Zach said about I guess when you're making those claims that these say this, and I guess it's context it's dependent as well, whether it's, you know, there might be data fabrication or you think there might be their conclusion isn't reflective of their data. And of course, that's quite subjective sometimes. And we've got to be pretty confident to, you know, to be like, okay, I'm putting the patient first here, and more than the you know, the academics' feelings. You know, I guess you've got to be pretty confident in your claim that is harming patients. And you know, without obviously a sturdy example, it's difficult to base a discussion on that.
I guess one of my examples of severe methodological concerns that directly caused harm to the patient community is the PACE trial in MECFS. So I am referring to specific examples.
Sure. Be interesting to have a look at that, Rosie. Thanks for that. Sovik, apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong.
No, that's fine. That's correct. So I would like to say two cases. So of course, I'm also not in favor of directly going to Twitter first. I think that's a bit over the top kind of thing. But I did the traditional way. I did one way, and my colleagues next desk did the other way. So I would like to talk about both. So my colleague wrote a letter to the editor, and then the traditional thing happened, what John was saying. It went on for some weeks, and then nothing happened. The paper was completely wrong. It was just on Newton's laws of physics, so everybody can understand that it's wrong or right, but the paper never got retracted. So I think that didn't work. While I was doing a review, I kind of found two errors, kind of what Christine was pointing out yesterday, like standard error and standard deviation kind of errors, pointed out to the authors by emails. That was the first thing that I did. They even responded back, to my utter surprise. I was not expecting a reply back. But then that also went on for a couple of weeks, and then it died down. And I stopped emailing them because they said that they will contact the editor and publish a corrigendum. I think that's the term that they use. So it's not really retraction because it's not a big error, but just updating the values, that would be right. But that also didn't happen. So I trusted the authors on that, that they would do it. But the papers are still lying out there in the literature exactly with those values. And it harms in a way, because if you do meta-analysis on them, your effects are also getting spurious, I think, over the years. So Yeah, so as a PhD student, as a ECR, as a trainee, whatever you might call myself, I'm now in a fix of what to do, because I don't want to do the Twitter thing. I'm not even sure whether that works or not. It's kind of public shaming, I think. But these traditional ways also didn't work, and not once, but 2 instances, if I also include my colleague's case. So I'm in a fix of how to fix it.
Yeah, no, that's a really difficult position. And thanks for sharing that, Souvik. And I think it does link back a little bit to what Rosie said as well. When there's clear errors, there's errors, and that's affecting things like meta-analysis that then affects things like recommendations and policies. That's really wrong. And it's how to go about actually, shifting that. And I think James just said in the chat that retractions are, really hard. And so perhaps you do have to push really hard, and make it public on this. And maybe that's in some scenarios the only way to, to elicit change. Whether there's a good workflow to tick boxes before then you do that, I'm not sure. Thanks for that. Nick, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, thank you. I just I'm caught between the two extremes, if you like. So on the one hand, so my recent experience that I spoke about in my talk was this vitamin D paper that was retracted. And for full disclosure, that was a case whereby I contacted the, I contacted the editor-in-chief of the journal and just expressed my concern. So this was just in an informal email. He then launched his own investigation. The authors didn't return his correspondence. And when they finally did, their explanation was really insubstantial and insufficient. So at that point, we then I then wrote the letter to the editor, which was formally published. And then I kind of went a bit more public with it and posted on Twitter. However, I would like to echo Rosie's comments in that while we're conforming to all of these, social etiquette and formal standards of practice and relying on the system and to some extent bureaucracy to get our concerns heard, the community that are spreading misinformation and in a lot of cases disinformation regarding either fraudulent practices or just laziness or negligence with regards to their scientific research, they're not playing by the same set of rules as us. People are often tweeting these kinds of things. They're tweeting studies, flawed studies, without reading them. They're posting on Instagram about giving advice that is completely non-evidence based. And while we're sort of showing all this social etiquette and relying on the system to help get our voices heard, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that's being spread and doing a lot of harm. So I'm sort of caught between the two of being diplomatic and trying to be a good professional and being a good scientist and following the codes of conduct. But at the same time, the people who are spreading disinformation about science are not playing by the same set of rules. So it's a difficult one to try and consolidate.
Yeah, I think thank you for sharing that, Nick. I think that those are some really good points. And perhaps then, does context matter then? As it it does, but in terms of context of the type of, I know you're sort of talking there about the spreading of misinformation, but of course there's other things like critiquing people's methods that sometimes are a matter of opinion, and I think then, yeah, potentially, context is important, because I completely agree with you and Rosie that actually if these are harming people and this is spreading misinformation, that there needs to be a quick way to stop it. One way that I went around trying to publicly critique the velocity-based training field, because I believe that spreads a lot of misinformation as well, because I think it's linked to companies and things like that. It's commercialized essentially, the research, and the way I went and did that was to publish and James is on the paper as well, publish a sort of a thorough systematic review, meta-analysis with evidence quality appraisal and risk of bias, Cochrane tools and things like that, and then talk about almost objectively aligning to these best practice evidence appraisal methods. But to just critique some work, man, that took a lot of time.
that, you know, it's probably a year to publication from we started, maybe longer, and it was a hell of a lot of work to be able to do that. And I wonder maybe a faster, you know, more productive way, it was, you know, a Twitter thread and to outline my concerns that way. Keith, please. I think that's probably the last.
No, yeah, I mean, I think, and again, I want to emphasize that I don't think exploring kind of alternative means of bringing these arguments is bad. You know, I think disseminating things through preprints and things on Twitter and trying to make them as accessible as possible is important because, as has been mentioned, people are playing by different sets of rules. But I also think it's important not to conflate trying to work within institutions as a sense of respect for people's feelings. I mean, I work within neurological rehabilitation, and trying to correct errors in that field, I'm motivated by the same interest that everyone else is. I do it the way that I do it because I've had more success that way. And I'm interested in actual return on investment of my time. And I just haven't found it to be as useful. And whereas if I contact authors and I contact editors and things have been done discreetly, has been better for me. But I'm not saying that that's the truth or the best approach for everyone. So I just want to point that out. Like, I don't want us to conflate that we're going this path because we just care about somebody's feelings. Right? I don't care about their feelings. I care about being right. And I've found that I can actually get people to correct mistakes more easily and more efficiently in these different channels.
That's a really good point. So actually, yeah, going that way, reaching out discreetly is actually being more impactful and as you say, a little bit more productive in your time as well, which is always important. That's really interesting. Thanks, guys, for engaging in that discussion. I think we are now at the 30-minute stage. You know, clearly there's no real right or wrong answer to this. Potentially there's some etiquettes to follow, but I think it's important for us to be aware of the impacts sometimes of publicly criticizing people's work, and just have an open discussion about potentially best practices for going about doing that. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks so much, Sam. That was a really great discussion, really great format, and congratulations for putting it together in a way that got everybody involved. I thought that was really nice. So we have a brief break now. I think we have 30 minutes. I definitely need coffee, food. So let's all go when we come back. I think it's actually working out really nicely now, because going straight from this, the title of our next talk is Bringing Humility to Exercise Science, which I do think leads very nicely from this conversation. And it's going to be coming from somebody coming from a different perspective, the fantastic author and journalist Kristi Eswandon. So I think that's going to be a really fantastic talk, and it's really going to follow up on these great discussions we're already having. So excited for that. Go take a break, and I'll see everyone back here at 2:30.
you.